So I welcome Dr. Vaishal Kenia. He's the chairman and medical director of Kenia Eye Hospital, Mumbai. He's a very well-known phaco-refractive and cornea surgeon from our field, actually, and he's one of the best surgeon who has shown a lot of challenging cases in various symposia, and the youngest doctor to have to achieve the award. And I welcome him. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for a very nice introduction. And at the outset, I thank Dr. Somil Kothari for inviting me for this instruction course and the AIOC. So without much ado, so the talk is influence of corneal abrasions on premium IOL performance. Is my slide visible?
Yes.
Okay. So why abrasions are important? So in the previous talk, we saw that topography is very, very important, but also higher order abrasion is important to give quality of vision. It allows you to provide correction beyond sphere and astigmatism. Now, what is quality of vision? Quality of vision is for better contrast, for better low light vision, and all is dependent on lower order abrasions. See, mind you, if you have not corrected the lower order abrasions, then there is no question of correcting higher order abrasions. So you require an eye to achieve post-cataract surgery or near emmetropia. Then you can do the fine tuning and work on the higher order abrasions. So spherical abrasion correction in cataract surgery is not something new. We have aspheric lenses to improve the contrast sensitivity, and customization is not possible with the current technology. We just have neutral, negative aspheric IOLs and spheric IOLs at the moment. So measuring abrasions, these are the various ways by which we can measure. Hartmann-Shack is the most popular one. Scherning's, differential skiascopy, and ray tracing. This is a abrasion-Zernickel polynomial map, which has broken down the wavefront into small components by which we can understand the wavefront, the complex wavefront, in a better fashion. So third order onwards, we usually go up to the sixth order, beyond which it is not that important. So today, the spherical abrasions which are most important are the spherical. Sorry? You can hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yeah. So the spherical abrasion and the coma are the most important spherical abrasions contributing to the quality of vision. So abrasions are dynamic. Just to give you an example, this is immediately after a blink and 40 seconds after a blink. You can see the distortions occurring and the abrasions. So really, to measure these abrasions is very, very difficult. What we can do is bring it down to mitigate them to a level by which they are not significant. Now, what are the sources of abrasions? They're basically divided into external source. The external source is the tear film and the anterior cornea, and the internal source is the posterior cornea, lens, and the retina. The most important contributor is the anterior surface or the ocular surface, which is the tear film and the cornea. They contribute almost 90% of the total abrasions. And that's why the topography becomes a very integral part of a premium cataract IOL workup. Now, to understand the corneal spherical abrasion is constant all throughout the life, but the lenticular spherical abrasion, it is negative when we are born. And as we age, we reach the presbyopic age, it neutralizes the corneal spherical abrasion, but later on it adds on to the positive spherical abrasion, thereby deteriorating the image quality. If you see the spherical abrasion distribution, it's primarily, if you see, this is a Gaussian curve, but it errs more towards the negative or towards the positive side. Majority, almost 80% of the spherical abrasion is more than 0 and less than plus 0.4 microns. Now, what we are talking about abrasions are all monochromatic abrasions. We are now also have chromatic aberrations. But by and large, these chromatic aberrations, which are about 1.5 diopters in magnitude, are neutralized by, to some extent, by these monochromatic aberration, higher order aberrations. So most important is when to customize and when to correct is in cornea's post-refractive surgery, where the aberrations and the coma increase by 2 or 3 folds. This is when, if you want to put a premium IOL, this is the cases which are the non-virgin corneas, where you have to be very, very careful. Otherwise, you can have post-operatively a very unhappy patient. So George Baiko and et al. In 2006 published a paper saying about the customization of IOL, and he said a target of plus 0.1 micron of spherical aberration would give you a better contrast sensitivity. But that concept was in 2006. And we had an array of aspheric IOL options, and those options are still the same. Mind you, neutralizing completely the spherical aberration, we are compromising on depth of focus, which is also equally important. So a balance is what is important. So mind you, it is not complete neutralization which is important. Some amount of positive or negative spherical aberration, if left around 0.1 on either side, could be fine. So ideal spherical aberration target, what another study showed was a small amount around 0.1 microns is considered to be best, and they found the pilots having a positive spherical aberration did better in visual task. But Wang and Koch in JCRS 2007 published a very novel concept. They said the spherical aberration is half the amount and opposite side of defocus, meaning the lower order aberrations and higher order aberrations interact. You cannot dissect and individualize each aberration. All of them interact and behave in each other. There is a particular machine by Pablo and Natal which measures this interaction by it measures the visual adaptics, and that is the only machine available today by which we can exactly know the resultant aberration, because the defocus also reacts and neutralizes to some extent the residual spherical aberration. So if we have a residual error of minus 0.5, the ideal spherical aberration should be plus 0.2. If a plus 0.5 diopter spherical aberration is there, an ideal would be a minus 0.3 spherical aberration. So ideal spherical aberration target varies according to the defocus and astigmatism, and this is a new concept. So we cannot have a fixed value for spherical aberration because of the interactions of the lower order aberrations and higher order aberrations, because the ocular surface, the tear film and the pupils are also making it dynamic. So post-operatively, we need to aim for near emmetropia. That is the basic requisite for correcting aberrations. And in non-virgin corneas, we need to have a customized approach, and sometimes a two-stage procedure may be required. I'm sure Saumil is going to dwell more in detail about this topic, where we can correct the irregularity in the cornea and then dwell and implant a premium IOL. So a prerequisite for a customization of spherical aberration is the near zero defocus, means less than 0.5 would be ideal. A stable regular ocular surface, which I'm sure one of my colleagues is going to dwell how dryness should be treated before dwelling to a premium IOL. And surgically, it has to be flawless optical centration, and the tilt has to be taken care of. Neuroadaptation can adapt some amount of spherical aberration, but not the orientation of the higher order aberration. So dry eye need to be treated before measurements. An optical biometer is very, very important because it tells us the foveal centration, the K-Myers, the geometry of the whole eye. Tomography is important, and corneal aberrometry. I use the eye trace and the OPD scans in cases where the patient is unhappy post-operatively in premium IOLs to find out what is the cause and where the problem is. So these are a few examples. This is a post-RK case, and as Bindu said, the EKR map is very, very important. Here you can see the gross irregularity which is there. So this there is a gross decentration of the ablation or the optical zone is not an ideal candidate for a premium IOL. You can see the total is almost 4.22 and the spherical aberration is 0.481. So ideally, a premium IOL cannot be implanted. An option of regularizing the surface with a topo-guided PRK with mitomycin C can be contemplated, but that we have to tell the patients about the limitations and explain those things and move ahead. And we cannot say a total independence of glasses even after doing all these procedures. Second case is a close LASIK case where you can see an EKR map with a very good peak. So this is a map which shows the central 5 millimeters. It shows quite good regularity, and the Belen-Ambrosio bad display, the aberration profile is within limits. So this is a patient where we can implant a premium IOL.
So would appreciate if you could wind up in the next 1 minute.
These are my second last slides. So this is a post-LASIK case where again there is a good peak in the EKR map and the aberrations are quite controlled. Here also you can help, and this is how we can decide whether a premium IOL can be implanted or not. Here the total aberrations are quite high, around 0.86, and you can see the point spread function is also high. Here, mind you, the spherical aberration is not that high, but the other aberrations are high. So this again could be a problem. This is an example of an inferior steepening on a topography, but if you go and see the aberration map, the aberrations are not that significant. So you can go ahead and implant a premium IOL. So this, the workup of a topography, aberrometry, tomography, and an EKR map is a requisite in addition to an optical biometry for a premium IOL practice. Thank you so much.